it out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 631st edition of Energy Week with George Harvey, me, and the amazing Nancy Wolf.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'm just, telling you what's true. This is a news aggregation show that takes news from a blog that I keep, which is a news aggregation blog that I post to every day. And it takes about 3 articles per day, the articles that I think are probably the top ones. And we examine them. And they are taken from my blog, which is geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com. You can read them there by going there and clicking on the date on the calendar and then seeing what the usually 15 articles come up on that day. And the date we will keep you apprised of as the show goes on. Or you can go to a website that is linked somewhere. Usually for most people it's down on the screen, but it could be right. And that is going to be a tiny URL site that will be tinyurl.com/energy week 631, something like that. Anyway, by going to those places you can get a link to the original article. That's the point. And I guess we should just start.
Yeah.
Okay, we have our first picture, which is a picture of an offshore substation, and this is from Renews.
Yeah, so the headline here is Brattleboro substation installed off France.
You did that marvelously well.
Great.
Okay, Ocean Winds installed the offshore electric substation for its 496 megawatt Brattleboro, I did that badly. She does so well, wind farm in the English Channel. The chantier, I'm not going to bother. Chantiers de l'Antique. Okay. There is a proper way to pronounce that in French, and it sounds good. But I don't pronounce French easily or well at all, even when I'm told how to do it. They designed and built the topside, and the jacket was supplied by Navantia. Heavy lift vessel Gulliver, operated by DEME, carried out the installation. I have no idea how much that substation weighs. I think it might have been reported in the article, but it might have been 2,000 tons, which would mean that there is a ship with a crane that can pick up 2,000 tons of junk and stick it up on top of a yellow thing that's probably 10 stories tall and have it installed magically in place just exactly right. So it's perfect. I don't know. They do things today that are astonishing.
Yeah.
They really do.
Definitely.
You got anything on that?
Not this one.
Okay. We will go on to a picture of Catholic bishops. And this really does remind me of Mary, Mary, quite contrary, how does your garden grow? With silver bells and cockle shells and little maids all in a row. This is little Catholic bishops all in a row. Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen such a big collection of bishops.
Well, so this is from ABC News. And the headline here is Catholic bishops from Asia, Africa, Latin America demand climate justice.
Catholic bishops from Asia, Africa, and Latin America demand climate justice for the parts of the world most affected by rising temperatures. And they rejected what they said were the, quote, false solutions, end quote, promoted by wealthy countries. They advocated abandoning fossil fuels. I looked in this article for any mention of nuclear power. I didn't see that. But, one thing that I took as a quote was, this green economy really serves as an ecological restructuring of capitalism that just concentrates power again in corporations and regulatory systems.
Yeah. And I have one that stood out to me in this article, which is, we, the pastors of the South, demand climate justice as a human and spiritual right.
Yeah, and the Pope, I think, is probably really inclined to listen to these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's heartening to see that they're taking positions on this stuff.
Yeah.
Should we move on?
Yeah.
Okay. I went looking for a picture of a drought, and I found it, and that is the picture. It's obviously a lake that has almost gone completely dry.
So this is from the BBC, and the headline is, "Recent droughts are a slow-moving global catastrophe." From
Somalia to mainland Europe, the last 2 years have seen some of the most ravaging droughts in history, made worse by climate change. According to a UN-backed report, it describes drought as a, quote, silent killer, end quote, which, quote, creeps in, drains resources, and devastates lives in slow motion, end quote. And I have to say slow, painful motion, because this is something that just takes things away from people.
Yeah. So one of the things that I found in this article was that this UN report highlights how drought hits the world's most vulnerable people, including women hardest, with often far-reaching impacts on society. And then also another line here that I liked a lot was, drought is not just a weather event. It can be a social, economic, and environmental emergency.
Yeah.
The authors.
Now, I should have mentioned the dates for this stuff. I made a reference to it as we started. Those 3 articles that we just dealt with were on the 3rd of July. So we're up to the 4th of July now. And we have my favorite picture in this show.
Yes, yes, it's a great picture.
And here is a guy who I think is, or a girl, I don't know, who is obviously very alert.
Yes.
And very interested in learning, and probably somewhat wiser than some politicians I've seen in action.
Yeah. Well, this is from Renews, and this headline here is, Brez wins approval for Magherlin Solar Park.
It is pronounced Marilyn. It's almost like Maryland. Irish, and these are Irish names, is a language that has spellings and pronunciations that make sense if you understand the way it works. But if you don't understand how it works and you try to get it from an English background, it does not make sense. And part of the problem here is that when you take 2 words and you put them together, the first letter of the second word is likely to change pronunciation. And anyway, RES has secured planning approval for its Maryland solar farm in County Down. This is a 30 megawatt solar farm. The article didn't say that, so I actually looked it up. The Armagh City, Bainbridge, and Craigavon Borough Council, and by the way, I've just pronounced 2 Irish names badly, approved the application, which RES says marks a crucial step toward cleaner, more affordable energy future for Northern Ireland. It's not Northern Ireland is part of the UK, and the UK does not have a lot of open land, particularly when you compare it with the United States or Canada or Australia. There just isn't a lot of open land. The biggest amount, I think, is probably in Devon, in forget. There's an area there that they used to have a prison in. But
Sellafield, no.
Sellafield
is a whole
is
other
a problem, but that's where there was a nuclear fire there.
Yeah.
And there, I don't know, things happened. Sellafield had plutonium to fall into the Irish Sea.
Yeah.
And, I mean, people have just made complete messes.
Yes.
But this is a really good picture of a little animal who's going to be living in a solar farm. And I don't think you could explain to him in a way that he would understand or she would understand what all those panels are, except that they're comfortable places to sleep under.
Yes. Yes.
So there you have it.
Yeah.
Okay. On we go.
Yeah. Onwards.
This is a picture of the London Underground, and I look at that and I see Baker Street, and wasn't Baker Street where Sherlock Holmes lived?
Right. Yeah, I think that's what. Yeah.
But this picture, if you look at the bricks and you say to yourself, when were those bricks put in? They were probably put in before the Second World War. This station was probably a place where people hid during the bombing.
Right. Right. So this is from Railway Gazette International.
Yeah.
And the headline is Solar Plant to Power London Underground Trains.
How do you put a solar plant underground and expect it? EDF Renewables UK won a 15-year power purchase agreement to provide solar energy to apply power to the London Underground electricity. Transport for London's long-term aim is to purchase up to 70% of its total electricity through PPAs, power purchase agreements, with the rest coming mainly through a flexible green tariff. So the answer here is EDF is picking up this electricity and putting it on the grid, and the underground is just taking it and driving trains with it. So it's more an accounting thing than anything that determines where the panels are put in or anything like that. But there it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go.
We have a picture of pump jacks.
Yeah, so this is from NBC News.
Yes.
And the headline here is Trump mega bill gives the oil industry everything it wants and ends key support for solar and wind.
Trump's one big, beautiful bill, which is basically called by a lot of names that include big, perhaps, but not beautiful, ends federal support for solar and wind power while being friendly for oil, gas, and coal production. The House of Representatives passed Trump's mega bill in time to celebrate the 4th of July with it. And I don't know.
Death March? Is that why?
I don't know. One of the things that comes to mind when I think of this is these people are called conservatives. But Ronald Reagan or George Bush, regardless of which person by that name you're talking about, would not call this administration conservative. One of the things that the conservatives always wanted to do was let the market decide. Don't pick winners and losers, which is what they're doing here. They're picking oil, gas, and coal. And as we're going to see later in this, multiple times later in this show, the market is moving very strongly in the opposite direction. Yeah. And so what Donald Trump is a man who has built a factory in 1915 for the manufacture of buggy whips. Really, that's what he's doing. And we, as Americans, are going to pay extra for the electricity because of it.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a degraded environment. Our air is not going to be as good. There's nothing good about this.
Yeah.
Man. Okay. You know, I used to be a life member of the National Rifle Association.
Oh.
The day they endorsed Donald Trump, I sent them my resignation because I didn't want to be a part of an organization that would endorse Donald Trump. Just for the record, you know, I know something about conservatives.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we have a picture of Powerline. We're up to Saturday, the 5th of July, and an article straight from Wood Mackenzie.
Yeah, so the title here is Why Grid Forming BESS Technology is Crucial to Future Renewable Energy Supply.
Okay, a BESS is a battery energy storage system. And the synopsis says battery energy storage systems can supply more responsive grid inertia than the synchronous power generations of traditional systems. I'll translate that, but let me read this through first. Global generating additions from 2024 to 2034 will be dominated by renewable energy that requires BESS support. Okay. Battery energy storage systems are estimated to be, as of 2030, expected to be, storing electricity and then selling it at a premium of 0.5 cents per kilowatt hour. That compares with the old way of doing things when we had baseload power, and in those we had load following power plants, we had peaker power plants, things like that, which would add as much as 16, 17 cents per kilowatt hour. So going to battery supplies actually saves a huge amount of money. Not only that, but you know, the baseload power system was developed over a period of about 1880 to 1920, 1925. And it consisted of guys who would pick up a phone. I'm saying this with some imagination thrown in. Mm-hmm. Pick up a phone and dial a number, or say, when the girl says, "Number, please," mm-hmm. you tell her what the number is. They would dial the peaking plant or the load following plant and say, "We need more electricity." And the guy would start the plant up, and the extra electricity would come on 10, 15 minutes later. And if in the meantime you went a little bit too far out of whack, well, everybody's clock was off, and because the clocks would, you know, I mean, it was not high quality power compared to what you can get out of a battery, which is why solar plus batteries, wind plus batteries provides better electricity than what we got in the old days. And people worry about power outages and stuff like that. I was telling you before the show about a power outage in which all of the stoplights on the streets just went out, and they were out for, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes. And I was able to drive from Madison, New Jersey to Columbia University in Manhattan without any other cars on the road. Nobody would drive in this stuff. I don't know. I just don't know. That happened over and over again. And power outages of that, I was in Brooklyn at Pratt Institute when the electricity was down in that thing that they had in November of 1965. The whole northeast of the United States, except for Maine, the power went down. I think it was down in Ontario too. And it was down for hours. And, you know, I mean, I knew a guy who was in a subway train that came to a halt in the tunnel under the body of water between Brooklyn and Manhattan is not the East River. Do you know what it's called? I don't either.
The Hudson River?
No, that's on the other side. He was under there. And after waiting for some period of time, a guy came up with a flashlight and said, okay, everybody follow me. And they walked out of the subway tunnel because they knew that they were going to be there all night if they didn't.
Yep.
Okay. Our next picture is this is a picture of a copepod, and we have an article from the BBC.
Yeah, so the headline here is "These tiny creatures gorge, get fat, and help fight global warming."
Zooplankton gorge themselves and grow fat in the spring before sinking hundreds of meters into the deep ocean in Antarctica. This locks away as much planet-warming carbon as the annual emissions of roughly 55 million petrol or gas-burning automobiles, stopping it from further warming our atmosphere. Now, that works as long as the pollution, the waters in that area are not badly polluted and kill these guys off. One thing I should mention is that I have no idea how many species of copepods there is. I just picked one. Mm-hmm. And if you go into, well, at this point, you might find them in the Connecticut River. You might find them you might find them in the ponds up on various ponds around. Find them in the what is the, I'm zoning out on the name. What is the name of the brook down by the co-op? Whetstone. You might find them in the ponds that feed the whetstones that are up in the mountains. We had copepods in tanks in our greenhouse, and they would be used to feed the fish. And they didn't look exactly like this guy. They looked rather different, in fact. But there they were, and they're all over the place. But they are, as described here, they're talking about zooplankton off the coast of Antarctica. But the same thing is true of sphagnum, peat moss, which drops to the bottom of a pond if that's where it's growing. And an acre of peat moss, for that reason, can lock up as much carbon as 15 acres of forest. And there are many, many ways of getting carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. Some of them are smart, some of them are not so smart. We, as human beings, of course, choose, because we're Homo sapiens, we choose the not so smart ways.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay. We have an item here from Clean Technica about BYD electric buses.
Yeah, so the headline here is BYD electric truck sales up 333%.
Okay, I want to point out, I actually looked to figure out what they meant by being up 333%, because a lot of times people will say up 333% when they mean it is 333% of what it used to be, which means that actually it's up 233%. Whoever wrote this article, and I forget who it was, said up 333%, meant up 333%. They are 433% of what they used to be. BYD's commercial vehicle sales started rising considerably at the end of 2024, and they have been soaring in 2025. In June, sales were up 333% year over year. Even better, across the first half of the year, sales were up a whopping 710%. They rose from 3,740, that's vehicles, in the first half of 2024, that is 3,740, to 30,344 in the first half of 2025. Stunning.
Yeah. That's a lot. That's a big increase.
It's a big increase. And this is, BYD, compare BYD with Tesla. Well, BYD makes about twice as many cars. It does make, or has made in the past, I don't know, they may have stopped making hybrids. They used to make plug-in hybrids. They might still make them, but I know that they're giving that up or have given it up. And they have been just incredible. And they're making batteries, but they're also making mining equipment and forklifts and, you name it. They're in this for the long haul, doing as much as they possibly can. And the guy who started BYD started it probably 10 years before Tesla was started, maybe more than that. It's been a slower climb, but of late, Tesla has actually been going down.
Yep.
And it seems like everybody else in the world is going up, but BYD is going up. So we're up to Sunday, July 6th, and we have a picture of a wind farm.
Yeah. So this is from oilprice.com.
Yes.
And the headline here is Renewables Surge, though geopolitical shifts threaten progress.
Okay, despite high-profile pushbacks against renewable energy and rapidly changing policy environment, the global clean energy transition has picked up speed over the last year. Countries are finally gaining momentum in building up cleaner and greener energy grids. And this is not a joke. I'm seeing this over and over again. We'll mention a couple of specifics about this, specifically dealing with China and what the Chinese grid is like. But that's what it is everywhere except the United States.
Yep.
And a couple of other countries. Okay. Here's a good one. Another article from Clean Technica. This is the Mode X70 catamaran.
Yeah, so the headline here is an electric catamaran powered by sun and sail, the Mod X70.
There are products out there that are labeled ECO, E-C-O, but actually burn fossil fuels. The Mod X70 is fully electric, as in not a hybrid. It was refreshing to find that out, but there's more to a Mod X70. A representative answered questions about it for readers of Clean Technica. So this article, if you want to look it up, is about the catamaran, and it actually is an interview which is done aboard the catamaran, and you get good pictures of what it's like to be on this thing. That does not look like a big boat to my eye, but it's sizable. It really is sizable. It's a catamaran with two hulls that support it. The area in between the two hulls is shaped kind of like a boat hull. It has a distinct bow, which I think is in case a wave comes or something like that. But it looks like a very comfortable place to be. I think it would be comfortable to live on. Those sails there are wing shaped, and they can be directed and used in that manner. They can also be taken up or taken down without any effort. And the reason is because it's all done electrically. And they are put up and taken down by putting, they're basically huge, tall airbags. And you pump air into them and they become these sails. Yeah,
Wow.
That's what it is. And there's a lot of solar panels on this thing. The electricity that's used aboard is all from the solar panels. Okay, we have an item from ABC News.
Yeah.
And a picture of a flood. That picture, by the way, when I put this article into the site that I use for accumulating the materials, I didn't have any, there were no pictures available of the July 4th flood. So I took an earlier flood and put a picture in that. We've got two pictures later in this edition of Energy Week. We have pictures of two stories in Energy Week that were of the flood on the 4th, but that one is an earlier flood. This is from ABC News.
Yeah, so the headline here is Texas officials say they were caught off guard by deadly rainstorms flooding.
The deadly floods that struck Texas on the 4th of July were as the torrential rains caused, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble speaking, the Guadalupe River to raise to near historic levels came without warning and caught local officials off guard. The river rose 26 feet in 45 minutes in the middle of the night. Now, I want to be clear here. Since this article appeared, I've been reading all kinds of stuff about earlier warnings and also about people who were supposed to look at those warnings and pass them on to homeowners and whoever else is near that river, having been fired and nobody put in the job and the information was not accumulating properly and it was not going out properly. But it was, because other people were doing the job and they, the information was getting out there, and somebody's going to have to investigate thoroughly in order to make sense out of what actually happened. I can't do that, obviously, but there's a lot of disagreement about whether that information was available. However, the county judge, who is the head of the county government in most counties in Texas, for Kerr County, said he was completely unaware of the fact that this was going to happen until after it happened. And one thing that I should point out, there were warnings that they would be getting 5 inches, 7 inches of rain. That's a lot of rain. And they're in an area called...
A floodplain?
No, it's worse than that. It's called Flash Flood Alley. Okay? But the amount of rain that fell was coming down as hard as 12 inches per hour. And they had documented 20 inches plus of rain in several different places. And I have heard of, but I haven't verified it, one place that had over 30 inches of rain. So there's a lot to be found out about this. And I've been reading a lot. There was an article that appeared that said that the county, Kerr County, had looked at the possibility of having flash flood warnings up in a system that would do this automatically, and they had decided against it numerous times because of the cost. And again, the situation has to be examined. Okay, we're up to, unless you've got something to say on that, we're up to Monday, July 7th, and we have a picture of a wind farm in China.
Oh, yeah. So this is from the South China Morning Post.
Yeah,
and
which enjoyed this article. They just had a great fun publishing this article. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the headline here is China to power grid with record renewable energy as AI spurs demand. Okay,
China expects to add a record 500 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity to its national grid this year as the rise of artificial intelligence increases demand for electricity to power computing centers. Over a quarter of the new capacity will come from wind power. Now, Donald Trump said that Chinese were making a lot of wind turbines, but they were selling them all over the world, and he was unaware of any going up in China. And believe me, the Chinese have had a lot of fun talking about that. They're putting 140 gigawatts of wind power this year. Now, I did a search on how much wind power does the United States have installed, and what I found was that at the end of 2023, we had 150 gigawatts of wind power. So they're installing almost as much wind power this year as we had at the end of 2023. And China is installing renewable energy faster than the rest of the world. And that's just, you look at the numbers, it's astonishing. Absolutely astonishing. And by the way, I should mention the carbon emissions from China are starting to decline.
Yeah.
So that's what we're seeing. But the Chinese were very amused about Donald Trump and his not having seen wind farms in China. Okay.
He has glasses that only show him non-wind farms.
Maybe. I hadn't thought of that. There was another guy who wrote an article saying a wind farm was going into West Virginia, and Donald Trump thought that this was destructive to the natural beauty of West Virginia, and this person was writing and saying, wait a minute, didn't that happen because they were blowing the tops off all their mountains to get at the coal under them? Mountain removal coal mining. Over 500 mountains had their tops removed in Central Appalachia. Can you imagine that? And the worst of it is they blow up the rock above the coal, and what do they do with that rock? They push it down the side of the mountain, which means that any trees that get in the way just get tumbled over.
Yeah.
And the rock winds up filling the valley down below. So this stream that used to come down and had frogs and so forth and squirrels, foxes, whatever were around, is now covered, and you get the stream coming out of a pile of rubble that's 150 feet tall. And it's not pretty. It really is not pretty. Anyway, we have a picture of the Madre fire.
Yeah, so this is an article from ABC News, and the headline here is Madre Fire in California expands to nearly 80,000 acres.
The gigantic Madre fire, which started Wednesday afternoon in St. Louis Obispo County, San Luis Obispo County.
Yeah.
Obispo,
yes.
Okay.
I know someone who lives in that county. That's why I know how to say that county.
Now I'll tell you, almost 100% of the Spanish that I know, I learned from Puerto Ricans I used to work with in a factory. You don't want to hear it translated into English. So my pronunciation of Spanish is at best Puerto Rican, and
that's fine.
There you go.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay, it started on Wednesday and had grown to 79,936 acres on Sunday, according to CAL FIRE. It was 30% contained at that time. It is the largest in California so far this year and is burning largely in a rural area of the Los Padres National Forest. Now that picture doesn't show a national forest. It shows, it looks to me like it's mostly grassy.
Looks like the Guadalupe. So I've traveled to this area.
Oh.
I have a friend who used to live in this area, and so I've traveled.
Okay.
And there's a in Guadalupe, California, there are these, there are these structures, look like that, kind of like in the Badlands. So you see these sorts of.
Oh, really?
Dunes. They're dunes. So those look to me like the dunes, but they're probably not the dunes. But so that's one of the kinds of things that's in that area, or generally that part of California.
Yeah.
Central Coast. Yeah.
There is another word that also means dune. It is down. I'm not kidding. And you find that in England. And those in England would have been called downs, not dunes. And the two words are very closely related. They're basically from the same word. Okay, sorry, I shouldn't be talking about that. We're still on Monday, and we have a picture of a Vestas installation. This is from Renews.
Yeah, so here the headline is First Turbine Up at Baltic Power Wind Farm.
The first wind turbine was installed at the Baltic Power offshore wind farm in Poland. The 1.2 gigawatt project, a joint venture between Orlen and Northland Power, will comprise 76 turbines in total, each with a capacity of 15 megawatts. The Vestas V236-15MW model, that just means it's 15 megawatt turbine with a 236 meter diameter, can produce 80 gigawatt hours of energy each year. So one of those things would probably power Brattleboro just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, or it would come close. But that ship that you see, which is a jack-up vessel, is gigantic, and it has 2 more masts to put up. So it's going to do this job, and then it's going to go on and do something else. Okay, now we have a picture of Donald Trump looking very unhappy.
So this is from Renews, and the headline here is Trump signs order to eliminate wind, solar subsidies.
U.S. President Donald Trump has signed an executive order to eliminate subsidies for green energy sources such as wind and solar. He said, quote, "Reliance on so-called green subsidies threatens national security by making the United States dependent on supply chains controlled by foreign adversaries," end quote. Is he talking about the wind power supply chain, the wind that blows across the Pacific Ocean and just keeps going across the United States? Or is maybe some adversary getting between us and the sun?
Yeah, probably.
I read this morning, by the way, that the United States has bought controlling interest in a rare earth mine in the United States, because the United States government wants to make its own rare earths, which are used in all kinds of things, including motors of various kinds for wind turbines and electric vehicles and so forth. And it's amazing to me that Donald Trump would do this, and at the same time the federal government would be investing in production of rare earths. And they're planning apparently on building a factory where they will be separating the rare earths. The rare earths are not rare. As minerals go, they're actually fairly common. They're just around. The thing that makes them rare is the fact that it's almost impossible to separate them from one another chemically, and there's 17 of them. And it's a long, difficult process to get them apart. But neodymium and praseodymium, which are used in motors, are not the only rare earths. Gadolinium is another one, and that's used in nuclear power plants. I used to work with gadolinium. I've undoubtedly still got gadolinium particles in my lungs. Hasn't hurt me yet. Okay.
Okay.
I say hasn't hurt me yet, and then I think to myself, it would be funny if I fell over. But I'm not going to do it. I'd probably break an arm. Okay. Here is a fictional weather forecast that was put on, the article's from Clean Technica. Go ahead and read the title.
Yeah. So the headline here is WMO weather forecast for 2050 comes true 25 years early.
In 2015, the World Meteorological Organization, which is the WMO, created a fictional weather forecast for Europe for August of 2050, just so people would sit up and take notice. Sadly, that mythical forecast for 2050 has come true now, 25 years earlier. The future is already here. Quote, the situation is urgent, end quote. And basically that's what's happening. The situation that we've got is getting to be out of control. And here we are. Now, in the United States, we're not doing anything about it because we think that it's not actually happening, or at least our political leadership does. But, you know, and they claim that they've got a mandate, which is
yeah.
How you can get a mandate out of a vote in which you didn't even get a majority, I don't know. But I just don't know. Okay, next. We have more about the flood in Texas.
Yeah, so this is from BBC, and the headline here is at least 104 dead and dozens missing in Texas floods as more rain looms.
At least 104 people have been confirmed dead. Well, actually now we're up to something over 120. And another 41 are missing. That number is actually now, I think, 176. Following flash floods in central Texas on Friday. Figures are changing quickly as rescuers keep searching for the missing, and officials say the death toll is certain to continue rising. I want to put this in a little context here. Did some research. On average, over the long term, the United States has had about 85 deaths in flash floods per year. So this particular rainstorm, which got close to, I don't know, 6 months worth of rain, or maybe in some cases almost a year's worth of rain in a few hours, has already exceeded the number that we would expect for the entire nation for an entire year. The number has been going up of late, though. Then, you know, I don't know. It's in, and this particular thing in the particular flood in Texas, which we'll see again in the next article, has me infuriated. I'm infuriated. We're up to Wednesday, July 9th, and we have another picture. That picture that we just saw was a picture of the flash flood in Texas. This is another picture of this flash flood, which is in what I would call central Texas. And the picture was taken by the Coast Guard. Mm-hmm. What were they doing in central Texas?
There seems to be some body of water over here.
Yeah, it looks like
so it's the headline here. This is from Green Energy Times, and the headline here is "Funding Cuts, Then Loss of Life in Texas."
Okay, this article, disclosure, I wrote.
I kind of thought you had, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to read this. It says, CBS published an article dated May 5th. So this is 2 months before this, a little less than 2 months, 1 day less than 2 months, titled, quote, "Former National Weather Service leaders warn about loss of life resulting from NOAA cuts," end quote. All former heads of the National Weather Service signed to make the warning, all of them. There are 5 people. They all signed it. Despite the warning, funding and staff cuts were made and people died. Now, climate change will bring more deaths. In the article, I don't claim that people died because of the cuts. I don't claim that they didn't. I say This is what the warning was, and this is what happened in this particular case. I don't know that those people wouldn't have died even if there had been no cuts or I mean, I forget how many National Weather Service people were cut. I think it was 19%.
I would say I might go a little bit further than you, and I would be confident that it is true that when you cut funding to people who are gathering information about a crisis that's about to happen, I do think, I am confident that defunding these people who are actually trying to find out information
and
about
were
what's happening.
already gone from their jobs.
Yeah, I mean, that's, yes, their careers were based on this idea that they would be researching and searching and finding information about what is going on so people are aware of it and they can do something about it, as opposed to knowing and not doing anything about it, or not knowing and not doing anything about it because you didn't know about it.
Yeah. One thing that I say is we're going to have more disasters, weather-based disasters. Climate change is happening, and there will be more disasters. And I point out in this article, at some point, attribution science says this is the probability that that event happened because of climate change. In one case, which is the Hurricane Harvey in Texas, there were people who...
Was it you, by the way?
It was not me. There were people whose houses were flooded who weren't even in 500-year flood zones. Yeah. And the reason was because Hurricane Harvey didn't operate like a normal hurricane.
No.
And those people, a person who's in attribution science can say, this is the amount of extra moisture that Hurricane Harvey had because it went over a Gulf of Mexico that was so many degrees above normal. And they can say X number of tons of water fell out of the sky that we would not have expected 50 years ago. And if that hadn't happened, those houses wouldn't have flooded. So they can actually say, that house, which was not in a 500-year flood zone, flooded because of climate change. They've actually got to that point. They're not 100% sure, but they're very close to it.
I mean, here's the thing. When are we 100% sure about things?
When we're talking about breathing and dying.
Okay. I'm just saying that look, people are not, a lot of people have a hard time understanding acceptable risk, accepted risk.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
So everyone's looking for that 100%, but what about 99%? Okay, what about 98%? Where is the moment when it
gets to a point where it's unacceptable? And the fact is that if somebody is driving 100 miles an hour, excuse me, and gets into an accident and somebody dies, you can't say that you're 100% clear on that person not dying without the accident. Maybe the person was having a heart attack. I don't know. It's easy to get out of acceptable range.
Yeah.
Okay, our next item is a picture of turbine blades, and this is a really interesting article. This is from Renews.
Yeah. So the headline here is "Turbine Deal to Boost Ukrainian Energy Resilience."
Dutch company IX Decom, part of IX Renewables, signed an agency agreement with MCL Group to bring pre-owned wind turbines to Ukraine to boost resilience of its energy system. IX Decom is a specialist in the decommissioning and trade of pre-owned wind turbines. In other words, used wind turbines. But that's what it is. So they're these wind turbines are being taken down, possibly because they're being replaced with updated wind turbines that produce more electricity. But they've got the generating systems, they've got the blades, they've got the nacelles. Why not just move them to Ukraine and sell them, to people? They could even be crowdsourced.
Yeah, my own comment here is good for Ukraine. Really, just yeah. Yep.
Many years ago, I did a story on, I think it was a town in Holland where they wanted to have a town wind turbine, and so they crowdsourced a wind turbine, which was, and I don't think it came from that same company, but it might have. I don't know, but they managed to buy a used wind turbine. And at that time, it was kind of difficult to do that, but that's what they did. Okay. We have a picture of wind turbines in Changling.
Yeah, so this is from Xinhua. The headline here is China boasts world's largest, fastest growing renewable energy system.
By the end of May, China installed renewable energy capacity reached 2,090 gigawatts. Okay, more than double the figure in 2020, said Zhu Weibing, the deputy head of the National Development and Reform Commission. He also said China had over 31.4 million new energy vehicles, which would mean plug-in vehicles, mostly electric, battery electric. And again, the Chinese just love to be able to show how completely out of whack the American government is.
My comment on this is yes, China is winning.
China is winning. There's no question about it, and they have a big helper in this whose name I will not pronounce, but who works in Washington, D.C. China is winning. China is selling more generating capacity for renewable generating. China is installing over half of all world installations. Over half of them are going into China. Where do you think China gets all of that? They make it internally. But they make more than they use, so they sell what they're not using elsewhere.
It's called diversifying. Hey.
It's called diversifying. It's called controlling the market.
Yeah.
Which they can do because the United States isn't in the market. Nope. When Donald Trump in his first term looked at the agreement that Obama had made with Iran and the Europeans, he said, I don't like it. It's a bad agreement. And he pulled the United States out of it. And what did it actually mean when he did that? It meant that the United States no longer had a seat at the table. That's all it meant. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so we're wishing everybody to have an acceptably perfect week.
Yeah. Acceptably.
Acceptably perfect. We want your week to be perfect in a way that is acceptable to you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Come back next time.
Back next.